All right, guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you are all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And welcome to episode number 7 of the Breaking Point podcast. Back again after Super Week has finally concluded. Lots of, honestly, unbelievable storylines this entire week. So many great matches. So many ridiculous amount of drama, honestly, on the timeline this week. Something we haven't seen in quite a long time. Plenty to cover today, of course, with the Major coming up in just a couple of days' time. Joined once again by two wonderful gentlemen, Austin, EasyMac, O'Neill, and Lionman, of course, joining us once again. So also, if you'd like to watch on Spotify or the audio platforms, the links will be down below if that is your cup of tea. Let's hop into things then. So really no time to waste, guys. Just so much to cover. I thought maybe the first thing we can touch on before we go into this matches is this like mid CDL update they did this past week. So there was a few things that changed, one of which was the smokes, which have been changed quite significantly now. So instead of being like, effectively, they've tried to go down the CSGO route of making the smokes opaque when you're in the smoke. I've kind of played around with this a little bit. It's not fully opaque. You can still kind of see, but it seems to be better than it was before. So the question is there's also some other things as well, like crossroads P4 changing, that when we are playing on this update, we imagine for stage 2, is it going to be possible to have maybe snipers back, or is the crossroads P4 change going to be good? Some things like that. I wonder what your thoughts are on that, Austin.
So the update actually was really, really good. It also changed movement. So they made a movement change about a month ago. So when you jumped, you were kind of like stuck in the mud after you jumped, like you can't bunny hop. So they reverted that. So the movement is back to like really crisp, like flowing movement. So that will help a lot of players. The smokes are a really welcome change. You won't see smokes back in respawns at all, most likely, because like hardpoint is a lot better without smokes for both the viewer and for competitive players. You don't have the map just filled with smoke. So I'm hoping it gets back in S&D because that is a lot of strategy. A lot on, Garrison. Obviously, that map is just one lane. So right now it's super easy to play. So adding a smoke to that will make it more chaotic. Miami will help a lot. But other than that, the maps got a little touched up. Moscow, Crossroads. So I don't know about the Crossroads P4 because we haven't played it, so I can't say anything on that one. But the Moscow one was actually, they cut off some of the useless parts of the map, which is going to be really nice. A lot less of the just why is this here. But with the smokes changing, the snipers maybe it doesn't really fix anything that's wrong with the snipers. The snipers still have no flinch. They still have aim assist. They are still so easy. My grandma can go into the CDL and compete against Dashy. So that probably won't be returning until the snipers have no flinch, because you could still get hit. See, the problem with snipers is you can like in CSGO, when someone peeks a sniper with an AK can kill it in one bullet, like the sniper. In this, no matter what, like the Krieg will take 5 bullets, the XM is going to take 4. And you could still get 3 bullets in with an XM, and that sniper is going to be on you like a laser with no flinch and still only has to hit you once. So that is still the major issue. That has not changed. So maybe with smokes, but still, you're just going to have one mega player on the map if snipers do return that are just, I don't know. It doesn't really interest me to have that back yet. I don't know how you feel, Ryan.
I agree. I think the snipers, even I've tried them, and I've always been trash with snipers, and I can snipe in this game, which is ridiculous. And I always found it strange that everyone thought that fixing the smokes would be the be all and end all and would actually save snipers, and it's like, no, the sniper is still ridiculous. What I did want to ask was, how do you actually think P4 will work on Crossroads? Because I didn't actually hate the P4 originally at first, and I found it kind of strange where they moved it to, because it's quite open and so many different angles to watch, but I think it will be pretty good. What do you reckon?
I think they should have went back to the first one on Rock. I think that one was the most consistent spawn-wise. Now you have this one, which is going to be like P3 on Checkmate, where it's just straight mixy. And the problem with that hill now is you have 2 mixy hills and then 2 money hills, kind of, P2 and 3. So it's going to be like one of those maps like Frequency in Black Ops 4, Hackney in Modern Warfare, where it's just like your SMGs are just going to make or break you on that map. I don't know. We would have to play it more, which obviously we'll do after the major.
Yeah, the P4 to P1 is going to be so strange now in Crossroads.
That's a
Yeah.
good point. How do you even
It's
rotate
gonna
there?
start here, and then go the other end, and then back here. It's kind of like a figure 8 now.
What I don't like about that is you don't have to think about spawns for a minute and 20 or for 2 minutes.
Yeah, you just have to
That's a
hit the
good
hill.
point.
There's no
Just
thinking
both
about
sides
spawns.
equal.
Because
Well, I guess
at least,
there is, because like once you get to the next set of hills, like if you have those spawns set
Well,
up already, it's good.
some teams like actually breaking in the P2 from the front because then you hold P3
Some
spawns.
days, some days.
Yeah, I wonder what team that might be.
So like, I don't like it because I like hardpoint maps where there's a thought process where you're like, okay, next hill is here, but how do we two hills down the line? Like, are we thinking about those spawns? Like, how are we thinking like macro? Like, I like the more macro on the map, and when you have 2 straight hills that are mixy out of 4, because you got to also think there's only 4 hills, so now half of the map is just straight mixy. You're not thinking at all. It's just pressure, 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 fly at the hill. It's not my cup of tea. So I like the more technical maps. I like the Arsenals from Black Ops 4. I like the Haciendas. I like the Moscows. The maps where you have to rotate, raid, where there's a lot of rotations. You got to be smart. You got to like have like a set strategy for every hill. The team has to be on the same page. It's not just a BZ go burr. Like
that is what it's going to be. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, because the way Crossroads works at the moment, it's almost like. It's not, but it's kind of like how Slums was in Black Ops 2, where you had the same spawns for 2 hills, which I don't know if I really like that either. So, okay, maybe it'll work. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll just have to see how it plays. But yeah, well, plenty to discuss other than that. So I thought the way we might do it is go through the matches and we'll pretty much just go through the teams and talk about the matches they played, some thoughts on the squad, where they might go from here, because the first match of the week was Florida versus LAG in a group where we expected, okay, like FaZe, OpTic going to come out number 1, number 2. Then in third spot, I was expecting it to be between maybe the Florida and, Toronto Ultra were probably 3 and 4. Turns out that none of those teams actually came third, fourth. They came 5th, 6th in the group. Florida, I think, ended up finishing bottom. So not what I expected from this team, no doubt about that. But at the same time, they had a 3-1 against the LAG. They went on to, the 3-0 versus Paris Legion was the real surprise. Losing to OpTic wasn't too much of a surprise. Losing to FaZe wasn't too much of a surprise. But yeah, Florida looking nowhere near maybe what we expected from them before the season began. Awakening looks unbelievable, as does Neptune at times. Skies really has struggled to find form. And given the league is so competitive, like that seems to have been the difference maker between this team actually winning series. And they've been close, but they haven't quite got over the line.
Yeah, for sure. And I was surprised because I picked Skies for my fantasy team. Last year, he was easily one of the most consistent AR players. And so it's just a bit strange that this team has been a little bit off. And if I'm looking through the matches, they looked good against LAG. But then as the week went on, they struggled. I guess they did have Atlanta, and then they had OpTic. So, what can you really do against those teams? But to be honest, they haven't looked like the team that we thought they were at the start. But there's still so long to go in the season, so I'm not really worried about them. We'll see at the major how they do, because they're starting from losers round 1. Who are they facing first?
They play Seattle first, so it's winnable for sure.
Yeah. That is, and then they play Paris if they win that. So they've got like a run if they get it going, but I don't know. I don't
think it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's looking tough.
The hardest thing right now in the CDL is getting both your ARs going. Because if you think about it, the only team right now that has 2 ARs that are really cooking is New York with Diamond and Clay. Other than that, I'm going to get there because everyone thinks that. But in reality, Formal is doing pretty good, but he's playing very, very slow, which is his role for the team right now. He has a 1.08 for his AR, but his adjusted KD is a 0.99. So he's not even he's not cooking. He's doing very well. He's performing. He's doing his role. He's doing everything right, but he's not cooking. And Skies is not putting up formal numbers, and he's not cooking. He's just way below average. And I think every team is actually, besides New York and I guess Chicago, is dealing with that right now. Your flex player like Florida is either absolutely smoking the competition, and then your main AR is kind of struggling to find where they need to fit on the puzzle. and then they start struggling, or you have like where both of your ARs are kind of doing okay, but no one's really popping off. I think that's something that you're going to see a lot of teams try to figure out and try to fix. It's very reminiscent to me to when like the ICR and Black Ops 4, when you couldn't really, the ICR wasn't getting those high like fragging numbers. And then you went to MW where the M4, your AR had the highest numbers. So it's kind of, we're back to like the Black Ops 4 where your main AR isn't going to like absolutely kill it. Your flex player is going to be, So I can't be too hard on Skies because like, I think it's just like a learning curve right now. Like his KD is the same thing as Alex. Like it's not like he's getting blown out of the water. He has a 0.96. So I don't know. Like his S&D is really where it's hurting. He has a 0.66 in S&D. So if he can improve on that, then that team's gonna get better really quick. So
that's what's let them down, man. It's the surge. Like they can still win respawns, but are like Awakenings drop in crazy numbers every surge, and they just can't get over the line. It's like, we've got to figure this out because this Awakening guy is still out of control. He's popping first bloods all the time. Like, how are you losing this many searches with this many first bloods?
I tweeted out a stat yesterday that in their 3 losses where Awakening has more than 10 kills, they are 12-10 in 4v3. 12-10 when you have a one-man advantage. That means a guy could not even spawn in on the other team, and they still have a 50-50 chance of winning the round. Like, what?
That is tragic. Wow.
That's not good.
And 3 versus 4, I imagine, is just abysmal. So, wow, yeah. I don't know, but it's a tough spot for them.
It's weird. 4v4 SND, for some reason, it's like it's harder to win the 3v4s. Or when you get first blood, less teams are winning the round than 4v5s last year. It's like 4v5s, you could win the round once you get first blood, whereas this year it's not like that at all, it seems, for a lot of teams.
I think it's because it's too early in the season. So as soon as that guy gets like a first blood, I mean, you saw Dallas do it a lot. As soon as they get blooded, Shotzi's running down the side of the plane trying to make a play right away. And so teams are taking, like, as soon as they get blooded, risks are like, they're making these high risks that usually net them like 1 or 2 kills. So instantly it's back to a 3v3, 3v2. Like it turns the table so quickly. So I think a lot of these teams just need to learn when they get the pick to kind of play tight and look for those risks and slow it down a bit. And they'll translate into more 4v3 wins, because right now it's not a very good, conversion rate.
Yeah.
I saw a crazy stat on Moscow. Don't know what it was, but like on some maps, it's, as you say, it's a very low conversion rate. But on Moscow, it's something outrageous, like 90% or something, and 4v3s get converted. So it's clearly some sort of map thing, because on Moscow base you just hit everything as a team, so it makes more sense. You're going to trade it out.
Yeah, a lot of Moscow's hitting A as a group and then just like trading. And so
if you get first kill, you're probably going to win the trades, right? So,
weirdly, Moscow plays just like Raid for S&D, which you would not expect at all.
Yeah, I guess
Raid, a lot of teams were just hitting mid, hitting A, hitting B really fast, the ring. So like those maps are like the ones that Toronto are pretty good at right now, like the ones where they can just make it mixy. Like those are the ones where it's going to be hard to lose when you have the advantage, because you just bully it out. And if it doesn't work when you're bullying it, then when the other team just hard counters you, then it's not going to work. So it's going to be interesting to see, like on the more, I call them technical maps, so the maps where you have to have a little bit more cohesion as a unit, like the Miamis, the Checkmates, what's the other one? I mean, Garrison's kind of just, it's just there. I won't say anything on that, but like on like Miami, for instance, when you have to work
with a team,
I that's my favorite S&D right now, because you can get a pick.
It's so much fun to watch.
Yeah,
sniping might be too OP though.
With sniping, I'm super worried. Sniping, I think, will just absolutely ruin it. But with smokes only, and just no snipers, I think that could be one of the best S&Ds. Like, I think it has such high potential, because in smokes, like, just imagine smoking off mid and making like rushes down mid to hotel, smoking off the beach, because you can throw smokes pretty far.
I was going to say, you can probably throw them a long way. Like, you could do some fakes, right?
Where you're
you could
going
fake A from B,
yeah. And there's so many mind games.
What did you say?
Oh, wait, cut out? Sorry.
No, you two were both speaking at the same time. I had no idea what you said.
My bad, I'll shut up.
So, like, right now, like, you can throw the smokes really far. So just imagine you're going B, you're rushing garage, and like you have set up smokes where if I throw it from here, it will land right on the beach. They'll take a guy off of the garage to rotate over to a hotel, and then it's a 4v2 in garage, or you smoke off in mid. You can do like a lineup where you smoke off in the entire street. So like the two bomb sites are completely separated. So you can kind of create that wall where uncertainty, and you can send like one guy to A on the beach. So then you're like, oh shit, got to rotate, and then all of a sudden, boom, 3 guys come out of garage. Like I've been messing around with it, and I'm actually so excited to see how smokes go. I am super worried about snipers because that I think it's just an instant bailout, but really good for viewers. So it's like I'm so conflicted on that.
Well, yeah, 100% smokes just add more tactics. I think that's pretty undebatable, to be honest.
So, I mean, that idea about the smoke wall, that is so cool.
It's CS.
It's straight from CS, right? On you double smoke over towards secret. But do you hit it? Do you not? Oh my god! Yeah,
but you guys know what I'm talking about, where the
get right
are
mid on Inferno. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
you can do like
smoke
2
one
there
behind it, and then one in front of it.
Info,
and it cuts everything off. It's gonna be amazing. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I'm excited. All right, next team.
Next team. Well, I was going to say, maybe we don't necessarily need to touch on all of them. We'll just touch on the interesting ones. One of the ones definitely wanted to highlight is Paris Legion, right? Because these guys come into the season not expecting an incredible amount. I think after their team was put together, we were like, okay, they've got some pieces here. There's clearly some talent. A lot of players who probably have a lot to prove as well, especially the likes of Scraps wants to prove to London that, like, you know, they made a mistake not bringing him back. And he's been killing it, man, as has the entire team. Aqua's been on fire. I mean, well... I can't get that every single time I say I always he's been on fire. We don't talk about that. But Fire's also been pretty good. Classic's been doing his job. And I mean, what a team. They don't end up qualifying, unfortunately. They get really unlucky in the FaZe series not to win it, to be honest. If they'd have won that, they'd have been guaranteed winners. They would have been in with a shout. But having lost the final series to FaZe and then Los Angeles Guerrillas having won 3-2 on Paris earlier on, they end up winning the tiebreaker, despite arguably Paris being a more impressive team, and especially the 3-0 win against Florida was really good. I mean, their victory against Toronto Ultra in the game 5 as well. It looked like they were going to lose that series, but they somehow clutch up. I think they were down like 200-100 on the Garrison Hardpoint. They somehow bring it back and win the game 5 on Miami. So yeah, interested in your thought. I guess I'll go to you first, Austin, given that you had a very close fought affair with these guys. I suppose unexpectedly so. At the same time, FaZe, you didn't have too much to play for in that series, but you still want to keep the momentum into the major, whereas Paris, their lives are on the line in effect. But yeah, really excited to see how this team goes going forwards, because clearly a lot of talent here, and they're really putting it together, man. This is not a team you want to be facing right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're 3-2 in my book. Like, we didn't win that series. There was... Obviously, we were already locked, but like those 10 points, like if you go back and look at the final standings in MW, I think we only had like 10 points for the first seed, like on Dallas. I think we had like 100 and whatever, and Dallas was like 10 points behind us. But like those 10 points actually do matter in the long run when you're looking at it for COD champs. But like, obviously, it's kind of hard to come out with the same intensity when you're facing Chicago as you're facing when you're kind of just trialing stuff against Paris in a less meaningful match. But like, Paris came out and played like super well. I have a lot of high respect for them because like, they were looked down upon kind of going into the season. Them and LA, I'm going to kind of like lump them both together here. But like, they came out and actually played like very well. Everyone kind of wrote them off against like us in Chicago, and both of them played super close against both of us. And then everyone thought Toronto and Florida were going to be the 3 and 4 seeds, and it was like totally reversed. These teams came out with a lot of good fundamentals. They came out and Maddie is back. Scraps is back on good form. I think the XM4 meta, because like right now you can't jump shot with it. It's more the crouching. And if anyone remembers Black Ops 4, when Maddie was able to just spam crouch with the Maddox, he was absolutely amazing. So
without a scuff as well, does it on default?
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. I still don't know how he does it. And yeah, he's looking good. Classic is like entry fraggers. If you're not a BZ or like one of the top people, you're just completely wrote off. Think of Asum is just completely forgotten. Classic, everyone kind of just shuts him down, even though he has been pretty consistent the last couple of years and done his job. And he's back up to his great form. And Yuli and Fire, their ARs have really stood the test. So I'm excited. I'm a little bit disappointed that the fourth seed goes down to losers because I think they kind of deserve to be up in winners. But I'm excited to see the run they make in losers next week.
Yeah, honestly, I was extremely surprised by Paris. 3-0ing Florida, I think for them this week set them up for like a strong week to make it into. I thought they were going to make it into winners, but they played amazing. I think you're right about Scraps. When he's just flying around the map and doing his role, he's one of the best players there is. And it's sad that he's still yet to win a tournament. I hope that he can probably get one this year, but they beat Florida. And then they played Toronto, and that was a surprise because what did they win both hard points? Toronto in that game?
Yes.
No, Toronto choked the fourth map. Toronto were up 2-1. But yeah, Toronto were up 2-1 in that for sure. Because I remember they were up 200 to 100 on Garrison, and it was good for my pick'ems, and then they choked it and Paris won the game 5. But
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I picked Toronto to win that game. Yeah.
Yeah, because
yeah. And then they won that game 5, and that was a surprise. That was on Miami, and they smoked them in that map 5. And then they went up against what was their last game?
Next one was the FaZe.
Atlanta.
So.
Yeah, and they looked incredible. That was one of the series I went back and watched, and they looked absolutely.
They got a 3-0'd, man. Like that search 5-3 comeback.
Yeah,
I mean, wow.
Yeah. There was so many mistakes.
Yeah, I think that did lead a little bit onto Atlanta just not playing to their potential, but the fact that FaZe were pushing them and they recognized it, like they tweeted like, "Ooh, Paris looked pretty good." They're sort of in a similar boat to New York, although I do think New York is a little bit ahead right now. And the fact that they surprised us and came out and they're like fighting these teams to a level that we didn't even expect was possible. So they're really exciting, honestly. I think New York is the most exciting team to me, but Paris is right up behind them. They're the two dark horses going into this major, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm excited we have exciting teams. Like last year, remember, like when teams were bad, they were just bad.
It was just terrible.
This year, it's like I don't want to say bad team, but every team that is in not the top tier is like still super exciting to watch.
Yep, and they can take maps from anyone, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, there's so many of these teams that are like really entertaining, as you say. Like, you never know what you're getting from some of these teams. Like even Toronto, we didn't really touch on them. They had a bit of a disappointing run. They can't seem to close out a map to save their lives. But it's entertaining to watch, right? Because you never know if they're going to choke away a hard point, which they tend to do, and search and destroy. So kind of unfortunate for them. But I guess that the next team really to mention here, as you mentioned, Lion, is New York Subliners. We have to talk about these guys because when they had this run of 3-0ing London, then they come in and 3-0 Minnesota Rokkr, just completely demolished them. It was unbelievable. Asim was 22-5 in the hard point, 9-1 in the search after having gone 13-1 in the search against London the day before. What am I watching here? Like how has Clay got this much production out of these kids already? Like Asim last year, certainly an underrated aspect of that Mutineers team, or I get it all wrong, Minnesota Rokkr team. But it obviously makes sense that he was eventually picked up, but he wouldn't have been maybe if Hydra could have got out there earlier. And Clay, I mean, not to take away credit from Asim, but he's obviously just become a monster, as has Diamond. Mac had a really great bounce back week. I mean, they went on a ridiculous tear here, like 8 maps in a row, 2 of which against Dallas Empire. And then we finally saw that they were human, right? Because I'm like, okay, if I want to, after they went up 2-0 in that series, and I mean, they were up, 2-1 in the control with like a 14-7 live count, and Dallas just pull one out, like, it's just insane. If they don't do that, like, New York just 3-0 everyone this week. I mean, what an impressive team, man. I don't know what more to say, but they find themselves in winners at the very least. So we're going to get a cracking matchup against OpTic. We'll talk about in a little bit, Lion.
Yeah. Man, if we look at their first week, they almost 3-0'd LA Thieves. Like, that game was so close. Even though they got 3-0'd themselves, it could have gone the other way. And ever since then, I was like, all right, these guys have got something. They come in this week, 3-0 London, 3-0 Minnesota, go 2-0 up over Dallas. In the chat, we're freaking out. We're like, yeah, these guys are top 3 now. There's something going on here. And then they completely choke the series. And when I say choke, I mean like FaZe versus 100T at COD Champs level.
It was pretty bad, I'm not going to lie. That control was rough. I mean, you just knew they'd lost full after that. But
yeah, and so it was painful to watch because Clay, you could see next map wasn't really on the same level as he was the first three maps. First three maps he was cooking, and then he comes into
incredible.
map 4 and
he had like 43 in the control.
Yeah, it's something ridiculous, and then he couldn't quite get across the line. He used all his gas in his first three maps, and it's a little bit unfortunate. And then they go up against Seattle. We didn't really know if they were going to be the same team they were before that Dallas series, because losing a reverse sweep is probably tilting. I mean, I wouldn't know. I know how it feels in GBs, but in an actual league match, I assume that is horrid. And then they go up against Seattle and get the job done. So they're in the number 2 seed, are they?
3.
Yeah,
3? Right. So they play OpTic.
They play OpTic round 1, maybe.
Yeah, that matchup versus Dallas was the most important matchup of the week, hands down, because if they won of the entire week, that was the most important matchup, because if they won, Dallas was in losers.
Yep.
If they won, they would have been 4-1. LA would have been 4-1 if Dallas still beat them. Dallas and Minnesota would have been 3-2. Minnesota would have won the tiebreaker, so Minnesota would have been 3rd, Dallas 4th. So
instead they're first.
Instead they're first. Because
you got to tip it, man, to the clutch factor on Empire right there, because that was something
absurd.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was championship caliber.
That match versus Dallas.
The world champs.
That match versus Dallas is just heartbreaking to watch, because like Clay played phenomenally for like almost every round, but then made like a heartbreaking error when they were on defense. He was top pool house with Asum. They did everything right. He was frying. He did everything correct. Gets top pool house, and then for some reason slides out and just goes open stairs to challenge a guy. And I'm just sitting there like, no, this is where it ends. He gets put down, and then it's just like Asum's alone in pool house. They single him out, and then they just hit through the front, and then they end up winning the round. And I'm like sitting there, I'm thinking like, if Clay just stays top pool house, they 3-0 him, it's over. And then I'm just reminded of Black Ops 4, and I'm just like, oh, I know this pain.
Yeah.
But that's why raid control is so good to watch at times, because you get those situations, at least from my opinion, from a spectator standpoint, because you can be down a lot of lives, but it's like, we just need 1-4 dead. We can 4-stack the hill. They're spawning a way out. Like, we can win this round. Like, on a dime, the round can change, which is not possible on any other control map. So
it's not possible in any other game mode as well.
That's also true, yeah.
I want to touch on one thing. One player was on both those awful reverse sweeps, and it's Asum. He just loses in tough controls one round away.
Oh, that's a good point.
Be giving out free advice, but like, if you go back and watch every round where a offense clutches it, if you go and look at the defensive setup, I think you're going to start seeing a lot less of these once teams start figuring it out. But like, teams are playing it horribly. Like, I've seen people put one person basketball. Like, I saw Toronto do this. They put one person basketball, one person tiki, one person in pool house, and then one person in garage. Like, they completely spread out the top part of the minimap. And it's like, that is not how you want to do it. You're just giving out free 4v1s battles, right? Because like, the offensive team will group together and bully out a site. So like, I'm seeing like people put one person basketball, and it's just like, just group up in money. Just group up together somewhere, because like, you take 3 people sliding down basketball stairs versus one guy, you're going to get traded out. And then they go into Tiki, and you trade out that guy. And then it's like your 2 people pool house are just useless at that point. And it's like, that's how these defensive setups are crumbling. I've like watched it happen like 3 or 4 times. And I'm just like, every time I'm just like, no. Just like,
so your problem is that too many players and teams are single chowling instead of
they're spreading out. Because like
to cover more area rather than
they're trying to cover more area, but what they don't think about is they're making it a 1 versus 4 fight, or 1 versus 3, because the offensive teams are never going to spread out. They're going to group up together and try to bully something out. And so like,
that's the problem with raid though, is that raid, there's so many different angles they could be coming from. They could come from stairs, they could come from money, they could come from
but what you can do is you can duo up and play for information, and then when you do have those group fights, you can at least play off of each other and take down 2 or 3 of them. Because how you lose raid on defense is you let them get a clean sweep, 4 kills, and you can stack it. Because when you stack it with 4 people, like Dallas did, the defending team doesn't have enough time to get there. So it's the same thing with Garrison on the A site. If you get 4 dead and you have 4 live and you stack it, round's over. Like round over. You don't have time to get there. Like mathematically, you do not have enough time to get there. So like spreading yourself out like that and just individually 1 down, 2 down, 3 down. Oh shit! Like if you don't have a streak to make up for that, you lost. It's done.
Yeah.
And Dallas did it twice. And I'm just like watching. I'm like Dallas won the offense twice when they were doing it. I was like, oh man, they're just doing everything right.
Yeah. Do you think some teams get comfortable with the idea of spreading out so that you don't drop 4 down straight away and have the ability to trade some kills? And so teams are getting comfortable being able to trade out and not lose a 4 down and have the entire point taken and won?
I think they're more doing it for information. So when you spread out like that, you feel pressure coming from somewhere, you're able to react. But on raid, it's like you don't have a lot of the setups. You don't have time to react. When you have that guy in basketball, because I've seen like 4 people do this now. You just have one solo guy in basketball. When people fly down those stairs,
he sits in that back corner, just like
you're dead. Like you're dead. Like, there's no getting out of that. There's no trading because there's no one to because guys top pool house can't trade you. The guy, if you have a guy in money or tiki, like that's a tough fight to trade. So it's like that's one life you just threw away for information. Granted, like you know where they're coming from now, but you threw away life. Now it's up to your guys to win those battles. And what happens is, like usually they get the free cap and ring. That's a minute, 2 minutes, minute 30 that you have to straight play perfect and not let any of these go down. And it's like I feel like teams like overexert themselves. They lose a couple battles and it just snowballs. And I think it's a learning experience. I bet by the time like this, stage 2 or 3, you're going to see a lot more tight setups, and they'll play for that first couple of kills and then they'll start spreading out. But I feel like too many teams are spreading out originally and thinking as soon as we feel the pressure, we'll group up. And right now they don't have there's not enough setups to play for the information, then play tight. So I don't know. The learning curve.
It's an interesting one for sure. I totally agree. Like I saw a lot of people, they would push out into garage thinking they're spawn trapping somehow, but then the guy's just full flank through basket, and then the guy top pool house is useless because they were hiding from him. Somehow taking an offense from behind, which you don't see too often. But the final team I really wanted to touch on here was OpTic Chicago, because the first week, really the discussion we had on the last episode was, how good's their search going to be this week? They're probably going to need to turn it up to a degree. And they had to win a search in both series they played here, both of the the key ones against Toronto, then against Los Angeles Guerrillas. They played against Florida the final day as well. Actually, in all of these, actually in the Toronto one, they lost the search in one of the respawns. In the other 2, they lost game 1 on both on Garrison Hardpoint, which was interesting. And then they managed to win game 2 search. So definitely more optimistic for OpTic. Looking at their search and destroys getting to a level where they can take them. And as soon as that starts happening, they're going to be a very difficult team to beat indeed. But they didn't look like incredibly dominant. Not like any team's really been incredibly dominant apart from New York in those couple of series. But throw this to you, Lion. Like, what do you think about the OpTic team? Obviously, they're going into this major in a good spot. They're in winners, but a New York match first round is not ideal.
Yeah, if New York come out the way they've been playing, like they came out against Dallas, it could be tough. But from my perspective on OpTic is, we know that their respawn is ridiculous. Are they still undefeated in Control?
Oh, good question, actually. I think they should be.
Yeah, I think they should be. I think they're 5-0.
They've got to be, yeah.
I think so. But so their control is on lock. Their hard point is really good, but for some reason they throw away maps by kind of losing it near the end, and they get to like 200 points and then they just lose their heads a little bit. And then SND, it did look improved this week. They won 3-1 against Toronto, 3-1 against LAG, and then 3-1 against Florida. Did they lose SNDs in all of those matches?
No. They lost
to Atlanta, won to Toronto.
To Toronto, yeah. They won the 2 and they won the other searches, so definitely a step up. It was close though. Florida probably should have won the.
Right now, they're 6-3 in hardpoint, 3-3 in S&D, and 5-0 in Control.
Yeah, so the S&D is nowhere near as bad as it was last week, and it's not really an issue. Well, it is an issue still, for sure, but it's nowhere near the same level as it was last week, because we were worried they can't even win a round last week. But I think when snipers get reintroduced, this is a team that will benefit probably one of the most because of the talent they have on their team. They've got Formal, who's one of the greatest snipers of all time. It's kind of undebatable. And then Dashy, who's just ridiculous with the sniper. And so we'll see if they can implement like strats with smokes and snipes and see if they can actually be more effective than they are right now. But their issues, they're starting to iron out, and it looks like they're heading towards reaching a peak performance before this major. And when's the major? Next week? A week and a half?
Wednesday.
Starts on Wednesday, man. We got 2 days.
What?
Or one day when you're watching this.
Yeah.
Oh.
when this gets dropped,
No
you
rest
have one
for the
day.
wicked.
Okay, well, I'll see
Absolutely.
you guys tomorrow. But yeah, so they're looking all right. I just I need to see if they're gonna still be an S&D prowess or not. But anyway, Austin.
My problem is I think they're actually really good. I think a lot of teams are like when they see the 2 losses to us and S&D, they're like thinking, "Oh wow, they're horrible." But in reality, they're 3-1 if you take out those 2 matches. So like I don't even think the S&D is that bad. I think they just got kind of just I don't want to say outplayed, but we just played at a high level in those 2 S&Ds, and there's sometimes when teams catch fire, there's just nothing you can do to counter them, and that was just those two maps. And sometimes you just gotta just readjust your strategy going in the next day. This is an off day, so I'll give them credit where credit's due. They've looked really good this past week in S&D. I think they've made a lot of improvements. In Hardpoint, they've lost Garrison twice, I think twice, and they lost Moscow to us. The Garrison this year is literally Gunrunner from last year, whereas in like every team can play it, every team understands it, every team that's the first map in Scrim, so every team usually that's the map where teams get going on. Like your SMGs will start to warm up, your ARs will start to make plays later in the map. So like my problem with Garrison is just like everyone can play it. So like you see the loss to LA, you see the loss to Florida. It's just like it's just like Gunrunner again, where it's like any team can play any team on that. So it's like I don't put too much stock in that. They played well on Checkmate, Moscow, Raid. I think they're 2-0 on Raid, 2-0 in Checkmate. Those are more the technical maps, the maps where you have to play together, know your rotations, play for spawns a lot. And they did the job on that. And then on Control, I mean, they're 5-0. They played Checkmate twice, so Checkmate they just got they did what they had to do. They won their defenses. Raid, I'm more like they were 3-0 on Raid. Raid's more impressive to me than that. I think Raid they played very, very well. They clearly have a very understanding of how to play that. They're one of those teams where I did see them spread out once, but they still played well off of that because they have the gun skill to bounce back from that. And most of their setups and plays were actually very good. I was very impressed. Obviously, I've watched all 3 of those a couple times, so I think they're just going up. I think a lot of people overreacted to the loss to our team. Clearly, there's an S tier, and like all four of the teams that you thought were going to be there are there. And Chicago obviously can take any team in the league, which is great. As I said in the last episode, like I want Chicago to be good because like the matchups are just like every matchup is going to be a classic. And I think they're like 90% there, like in their form. Like they're really good.
They look good, man.
Yeah.
So absolutely. But in a few minutes' time, we'll get into how the major's going to go. But before we get into that, we've got to talk on some of the drama that happened this week. So the first thing that happened, this was the whole Clayster flips off the CDL thing. I think this was on maybe day 2. So yeah, this is I think against their series against London. So effectively, if you guys listening aren't fully familiar with the story, Clayster, the Los Angeles Thieves series, after they lost that control, he was understandably very frustrated, right? And he was basically having a go at his team for good reason about the rounds that they choked in that game. And the CDL put that on screen as a piece of content before their series against London, right? And I don't know. From my perspective, it's kind of content. Like I'm sure the contract that he signed means that the CDL, I think you have to stay in front of your camera or something after the game ends. So that stuff is recorded. You can't get rid of the camera. So the CDL can use it as content. He wasn't very happy about that. And before the game against London, he puts his middle finger up to the camera. And after they win, he explains in the interview that that was basically a screw you to the CDL for airing that content that he believes that they should have asked his permission, or he should have been told do you actually want this to go live on the stream or not. It's an interesting question. I don't know. I'm all for the content, so I'm not exactly complaining, but at the same time, I can see Clayster's point line.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him at all because those comms in years gone by haven't been shared. And imagine if we saw some of the comms, like the comms when United lost that uplink to Envy at COD Champs 2017. Like stuff like that you don't want to hear because, of course, it's going to be the worst of someone's behavior getting destroyed. And especially was that the LA Thieves game, eh? And so the fact that it was that game, it was their first game of the season. They're playing up against a team that they should be close competition with, and they proved that they can almost win every single map, but each map they choked individually. And so they're like, oh, content, chuck it up. He's like screaming at his team. It's like, why? That's meant to be behind closed doors. If you actually show it, it's just going to give like the team a bad rap, might give bad vibes. All it actually did, though, was make them kind of play with a bit of anger, made them see red, and they played a lot better. So who knows? It might have helped them in the long run. I think personally they shouldn't have showed it because poor guy, he's just trying to help his team. He's a bit mad. He's having a go. And they share it with everyone. And that's just unfair. And I understand why he pulled the finger. It was probably not a good idea to do that. But the fact that he addressed it after the game and had a reasoning for it, I was kind of on his side, to be honest. What do you reckon, Austin?
So, like, if any of you guys watch CS, obviously, Blast just had a whole incident like this where the players were very unhappy that the comms were shown in a way that they didn't like. I believe like they could hear like the strategy being talked about from like some of the analysts could hear it, and so they kind of like boycotted a match. It was interesting. Obviously, this isn't on the same level. I think the league is doing it. They're not trying to be hurtful. Like it's straight. Like they're trying to be content. Which, as a viewer, I thought it was awesome to hear that. I actually thought that painted Clay in like a really good picture. Like he's a guy who's taking every single match so seriously. He's trying to improve his team. Does he do it the best way? Maybe not. But like it's pure passion, and it like kind of paints it. I thought it painted him in a good picture. But obviously, the timing was not ideal. That's not when you want that to be aired. More like after a big win, you want that to be aired, so it's just like extra praise, not before a match. But I do think the league was not trying to be malicious in anything like that. I think obviously this is the first or second year. I think they kind of started doing it last year with the comms check, but this is the first year where they're really trying to more utilize that. And I think I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's like a learning curve. Obviously, they're not going to show anything that's going to ruin people or paint people in a bad picture. But I think they saw it as more of like, this is Clay being passionate, like firing the team up after a loss. And obviously the timing wasn't there, and I'm sure they won't do that ever again. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind if they record the comms like that, as long as there's no strategy being like revealed.
Yeah, I agree. Like moments like that are okay. The timing was a little bit strange. I suppose that what we should get into, actually, one more bit of drama I wanted to touch on before we get into the major was this whole coin flip thing. So Octane tweeted earlier in the week about like every match is a coin flip and it's impossible to predict. And like, I remember he like quote tweeted it and such when LAG won map number 1 against OpTic and stuff like this. And there were some funny replies in the replies to Octane saying like, or on Reddit as well, when someone was talking about the coin that Octane's flipping and on both sides of it said Seattle Surge lose. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, like I think Lion, what did you have? 14 out of 15 predictions correct this week?
Yeah.
Sensei had 15 in a row. So I'm not sure I buy this whole thing. Like, because if you look at the top of the league, we see Dallas, we see FaZe, we see OpTic, we see LA. And yes, there's been a couple of teams like Paris and LAG, which were better than we expected, and New York and some other teams that are worse than expected. But, I don't really buy this whole coin flip thing, Line.
Yeah, no, I can see what he's saying. The league is a lot closer just in general because of the skill gap and because of the stackedness of the CDL, if you will. But honestly, you can tell who's going to win by, if you look at the stats, you look at the matchups, you look at the maps they're playing on. It's quite easy to be able to actually pick a team that's going to win. I've also been quite lucky this week as well. Or I've been lucky the whole time. I've pretty much I've got like 24 out of like 30.
It's not luck, baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's partially luck. And it's also looking at stats and looking at players and like talking to you guys. And so it really depends. I think for the average viewer, it would be quite, 50-50 and like coin toss. But for people who are actually invested in this and like trying to get predictions right, it's possible to actually, get quite close to nailing it. What do you reckon, Austin?
Like I don't buy the coin flip either because I feel like who were the top 4 teams going into the season? Like Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, LA. They're all top 4 seeds.
Minnesota instead of LA.
Like top 6.
I mean, even that they still finished. They went 3-2. It's not like they did bad.
Yeah,
they just lost the tiebreaker to New York, so that's why they finished in 4th. So it's like, I feel like in the individual tiers, like in the let's say like the A tier with or S tier, whatever, with the Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, LA. Like right now, any of those teams could beat each other. Yeah, but if let's say Chicago was to play London right now, like Chicago is going to win 85% of those. If they played 100 times, they would win like 85% of those matches. And like if London did win one by chance, it doesn't mean it's a coin flip league. It just means like it was just not their day. Like if there's an 85% chance Chicago's gonna win, there's still a 15% chance that London could win. You know what I mean? So like I don't know.
It's gonna happen one in every.
It's gonna happen
8 times.
Yeah, and like
So,
especially with a
don't know
small
which
sample
time you're on.
size. Like we've only played 5 official matches, and if you went through how many times a favorite team won over underdog, I bet you it's probably pretty one-sided. Like
I think it's like 75%.
Yeah.
Which means like a quarter of the time the upset happens, and you never know, you might get one week where you happen to just hit all the 25%ers, you know. There's a chance that happens. Then one week all the favorites will win. It's just how it goes sometimes.
We only have 12 teams this year, right? Like because
competitive
Black before we had 16 and it's 4v4, so it's like the top 48 players in the world, and it's like super competitive. All these teams have coaching staffs, all these teams have good infrastructure behind them, all these teams are like grinding. So all these like the skill gap, there is a skill gap there. Like there's no skill gap. Like each teams are better on certain maps, which is where vetoes come into play. Like just because one team beats, so like just because like Chicago lost Garrison doesn't mean they're a bad Garrison team. It just means like maybe that's like one of their middle of the pack maps, and that just might mean that like Paris, that's one of their good maps. So that's when like vetoes come in too. So it's like I think there is a pretty clear skill gap, like not huge. I think there is one though. I think like if you looked at Chicago or at us or Dallas, and then you looked at any of the bottom 4 teams, you'd be like, I'm still going to pick the top 4 in almost every matchup that gets played. So I think it's pretty close. Like it's not that far away from 1 to 12. The skill gap isn't huge, but there, right?
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. The league's competitive as hell, man. Like so many of these teams are so good. It makes sense we're going to see some upsets from time to time. But talking of which teams actually are the best, we look at our winners bracket for the major. I guess we can go through, do some brief predictions on some of the early matchups, and then who we think is going to win dark horse of the weekend. So first game in winners round 1 is OpTic Subliners. This has potential to be a banger. If New York play how they did against early on that week, I think OpTic had a really tough time. But it's interesting. If they'd have 3-0'd New York, if they'd have 3-0 Dallas, I might have given the favourites to New York in this series as well. I mean, I think you'd probably have to. But just the way they lost that series shows, okay, they're human. They can lose maps. They can lose full if they lose a map in a close fashion. And Chicago definitely have some ice. So I think I'm going to take OpTic. But this could be a really close fought affair, man. Like if it doesn't go game 5, I'd probably be quite surprised. I think that OpTic will have to win a search to win the series somewhere or another, which they've proved they're capable of doing. So that's perfectly fine at the moment. But I mean, man, what a series like! And if OpTic loses or whoever loses this, they go down to losers, and your chances of winning the tournament are just done effectively with how much of a gauntlet it is down there. So yeah, what's your take, Lion? I mean, a tough series to call.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much going to be the case for most of these matches. Is we really don't know what these teams are going to do. I think there's not much time to practice in between the league matches and the major. I think maybe a couple days of scrims. Are you scrimming at the moment, Austin?
We're not scrimming today because I don't think a lot of teams are, but we don't play till Friday, so we have 4 days of practice, 3 days.
Sure. Well, I think yeah. If we look at S&D, these 2 teams, what's the Subliners record?
Subliners, give me 1 second.
No worries.
S&D 4-2.
Yeah, so they probably have the slight edge, and but that's not enough to really influence me to pick them over OpTic. I think I'm slightly leaning towards OpTic just because I think their respawn's a little bit more consistent, especially the control. So I think regardless, OpTic might have map 3 like on lock, and it really depends on the map 1 and map 2 to see which way it swings. So at the moment, leaning OpTic just because they have a map 3 pretty much secured.
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning OpTic too. I think this is like New York are an incredible team. I think what they've been able to do this stage is absolutely incredible. What Asum, Clay, Diamond, and even Mac, like the levels that even Mac, he had that one bad series, but he's been pretty consistent after that. Like what they've been able to do is amazing. But like Chicago's another beast. I think really highly of Chicago. When I'm looking at their S&D right now, like New York's best map is Checkmate 2-0. Chicago, they're just as good on Checkmate 2-0. And then I look at, New York's only 1-2 on Miami. Chicago actually kind of likes that map. They did lose it to us, but they bounced back, I believe, and played that again. Maybe not actually. They're 0-2. But I think fundamentally, I think Chicago is actually not bad at Miami. So I think Chicago is definitely going to win the respawns. And if New York has any chance, like they do have a chance, but if they want to win the series, they're going to have to take the S&Ds. And I think OpTic has improved in S&D, and I think I still think I would give this a 3-0, 3-1 to Chicago.
Yeah, fair enough. It's going to be remarkable. And then the winner of that play is Dallas, right? So Dallas managed to avoid playing OpTic first round by winning the series against LA Thieves, but still, in all likelihood, we might well get that matchup in round 2. I mean, that one could be crazy. I don't even know who I favor, man, because Dallas have looked shaky so far this season, I suppose, as of OpTic. Again, like you look at these series and you're like, how could this not be a game 5? And if it isn't, it's going to be a close fought affair in so many of these maps. I mean, I don't know how to call this. I might favor the defending champs because they looked really good their last couple of series. You got to tip it against LA Thieves as well with how good they were looking to come out in that series and 3-0 them in the fashion they did. I don't really think we talked about that much. The clutch factor they showed, bouncing back in the search and destroy, dominating the control. That's something which, OpTic have been so good at control, of course. So, if Empire can take the control, I think that Empire win that series. So, I don't know what you think, Austin. I mean, if that series happens, it's a blockbuster.
My problem with them is their last 6 maps that we had was completely different than the first 13 or so.
Something like that.
The last Dallas. So like Dallas's last 6 maps. Phenomenal. That is the Dallas Empire from last season. That is the absolute clutch, the ice and crim. That is like Hook playing the star role, like the number 1 player in the world role. That is him playing on another level. But are we going to continue to see that? Like I would love to see that, but are we going to get that? Or are we going to get the first couple matches? Like I'm leaning towards they've turned the page. They're onto their current form. They're finally clicking. These matches mean so much. They're going to start really, 5th gear. So if it's them versus Chicago, like map 5 all the way, I cannot wait to watch that. But I would still probably lean towards Chicago for right now because I actually think Chicago has been more consistent. They've only lost 3 maps after they lost the 3 maps to us. But coin flip there. That is the coin flip match.
I think any of these are coin flip maps. Of this run. So like Subliners, OpTic, and Dallas. Like all 3 of them are equally in the same sort of tier right now, and they're so close that either way, it could be a blowout, it could be close, the maps could be super close, but it could be a 3-0. Like that's how I feel about OpTic, Dallas, and Subliners. And I think if New York win this first match and play against Dallas round 2, that's going to be a massive game. I think it'll be massive. It's OpTic as well, be even bigger. But Subliners versus Dallas in the tournament, I would love to see that. So I'm really 50-50 on the OpTic Subliners game. I don't really care who wins, honestly.
It's going to be a banger, man. I mean, the other side of the winners, we'll just touch on that real quick. We've got LA Thieves versus LA Gorillas. Maybe not too much to say here. I mean, Gorillas did manage to, I guess, sneak into the top 3. They did it by playing very well. Let's not put that past them. But you're imagining Thieves take this one, find a way to do so. At least how they've looked so far. Then the winner of that play is FaZe, right? So FaZe, if anything, have the easier side of the brackets here. I don't know what you think if you do play Thieves, Austin, whether that's a good matchup for you guys or I guess you're feeling confident regardless. But it's kind of like champs all over again, isn't it? You win one series after getting a bye, you win your winners finals, and you're in business in whatever best of 9 they're doing supposedly. So yeah.
I'm actually preparing for both of them pretty equally because I actually think LA Gorillas is one of the biggest surprises of the season for me personally. I DM'd Doug last night. I was like, wow, like we knew you guys would play fundamentally well, but like you guys are playing like very, very well. Like I was actually really surprised out of it. Even though they went 2-3, like a lot of their matchups were close. They took a hard point from Chicago, and would you guys ever expect that the Gorillas were going to take a hard point from Chicago? Like, personally, no, not a chance. And honestly, like this match is on Thursday. That gives Ricky and Bevels 3 days to actually prepare for an opponent. Like your opponent, you're going to prepare fully for it. So I would I favor LA Thieves. I think they're a top 4 team, clear as day. I think they're phenomenal. Kenny has been one of my favorite players to watch this season. But I'm actually a little bit worried if we played Gorillas because Gorillas are such a sound S&D team, which is our strength too. So it'd be strength on strength. And they're so fundamental and hard point to where if we, I don't want to like F up, if we F up, like Gorillas are actually going to take advantage of that and we could be in a hole. And I don't even want to think about that because that would just be horrible. But like either team is actually like really, even though we have the easier side of the bracket, which everyone's going to say, like still dangerous.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, what a bunch of series we're going to have. I guess we could do predictions for the weekend, even though I suppose I know what Austin's going to say. So I should probably choose a team that isn't FaZe. It's a tough one, man. It really is so difficult. I don't think I can go OpTic just because they don't start in round 2, which means that there's like at least a 35% chance that Subliners win that series or something like that, and then they're not even really in the running. So I probably have to choose between Empire and FaZe if I want to do like an actual team that's most likely to win. And I mean, wow, that series could be so good, couldn't it? It's actually quite tough to say. I think given that Austin's going to say FaZe, of course, I'm probably going to go with Empire because I think that so far this season they've looked a bit shaky. Hook has been outrageously good. And if anything, it's been Illy who's kind of not been performing maybe in some of their search and destroys. I expect at some point that's going to turn around and he's going to be dropping numbers. If that happens at the major, if they can win a lot of game 5s, they're probably going to need to do, I'm going to say Dallas have got my 51% confidence in winning this tourney line.
I think it's going to be the winner between OpTic and New York. If I'm not going to choose Dallas or FaZe, I think OpTic New York, the winner of that series, is going to be on a hot streak. They're going to be coming into a Dallas that hasn't played a match. So, like, I think that the winner of that game, they've looked really good in the league. I think Subliners have shown that their potential is ridiculous. They just need to put it together for 3 maps in a row and they can beat anyone. So, honestly, I think OpTic or New York equally 50-50. I don't know. I'll probably lean towards OpTic to win the tournament, but either of those 2 teams, whoever wins, I think they win the tournament.
I'll do it 3 ways because I'm like super biased. I'll do obviously like I think we're gonna win, but I think we're gonna face Chicago in the finals. That's just my pick there. I think like obviously like I've had pretty high praise for Chicago in this call. I think they're just dangerous. I just love the way Dashy has been playing. You know, clear MVP candidate. Envoy has really impressed me. Like even though he's had some like hot and cold maps, like pretty consistent throughout the week. One team I do think is an absolute team you do not want to play if you drop down the losers, Minnesota. I think they're one of those teams where you just see them down there and it's just like one of these teams do not belong. I think Minnesota is like just like LEG, like very fundamental. I think their problem is they almost play almost too fundamental. You can kind of know what they're going to be doing. You're not going to get some like crazy, just like, you know, when Shotzi just randomly does like this crazy flank, like that you can't expect. Like, I don't know if Minnesota is going to be able to fully get past some of the top 4 teams, but that is not a team you want to play in losers. That's like if you drop down and have to play them, you're just like, oh, damn, like, that's not what I want. They're even though New York blew them out in S&D, like they're still a pretty good S&D team. They're just like pretty good at everything, and that's just like not who you want to play.
Absolutely. Well, we're intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below on this one. Who do you think is going to win the weekend? Who might be the dark horse for it? Thanks all for watching. If you're listening on Spotify, maybe you can leave a review or something. Leave a like on the YouTube video if you are, well, able to. I suppose, of course, you are. Just smash that blue button. That helps us out quite significantly. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, all that good stuff. On the verge, I think, of 2,000 subscribers not long away. So that'd be great to see. Thanks to Austin and Lion for joining me once again. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of the major. And, well, we will see you next time.